Congressman Brad Wenstrup, welcome again to the Bill Cunningham Show. And Congressman, how are you?
I'm doing okay. Happy New Year, Bill.
Happy New Year to you. And let's talk about this. I watched it all in January, the commemoration a year later, January 6th, a few days ago, and I'm thinking, okay, I was a Trump supporter. I support his policies. If he's the nominee to run against, I guess, Kamala Harris in 3 years, I'll be with him 100% because of the alternative. And I'm watching Kamala Harris, who needs a history lesson. And so for those who are compared to the Nazis and to Imperial Japanese naval forces that we went to war with in World War II that resulted in 75 million deaths, including about 400,000 American GIs, comparing Trump supporters to the Nazis, and then also comparing Trump supporters to 9/11 Islamic terrorists was a bridge too far for many. The commentary has been more in one direction or another based upon your political leanings. But give me your thoughts on the speeches of Kamala Harris and President Joe Biden. Somebody wrote him a vicious political speech, and then he ends it up, he begins and spends time talking about what all you Republicans have done, kicking us between the legs, hitting us in the head. Then at the end, let's come together and all sing out of the same hymn book. So give me your thoughts on being compared to Nazis and Islamic terrorists, Congressman Brad Wenstrup.
Well, you know, when they talk about terrorism and when they talk about comparing it to war, these are people that have never gone to war. And I think that the president's actions in Afghanistan speaks for themselves when it comes to knowing anything about war. But, you know, look, everybody, Republicans, everybody in the country said this is wrong. This was not the appropriate thing to do. No. At least every elected official, that was their comments. This was not appropriate. Nor was it appropriate when a Democrat opened fire and almost killed 20 to 30 Republicans at a baseball field. Nor was it appropriate when people were attacking federal buildings last summer. Yeah. All of these other things that Democrats don't talk about. You know, they just let that go, sweep that under the rug, you know, and then they want to compare, you know, what happened that day. And it's not appropriate. And so, you know, I had a conversation with the FBI director, Christopher Wray. And, you know, we talked about all of these issues. And this is when the FBI originally, not under his direction, called what happened at the baseball field suicide by cop, when the guy didn't even know police were there. We got that changed into calling it domestic violence, by extreme violence by the FBI. But Christopher Wray said to me, you know, any of these things, if people are doing wrong, forget your ideology, we're going to hold you accountable. But have they? And that's what we said as Republicans when things happened all that summer. We said the people that do this are responsible for their actions. The man who came to try and kill us at the baseball field and assassinated, he's responsible for his actions, even though he was maybe highly motivated by Bernie Sanders and the Democrat Party and all their rhetoric about violence, if you look at Maxine Waters. So what they did yesterday was really just a Broadway show. I mean, they even included songs from Hamilton, which I found out today, the song that they used was sung by Aaron Burr, who actually killed Alexander Hamilton. So I don't know what their point is, but, you know, maybe they're going to have a nice ceremony this summer in June, when it's the 5-year anniversary of the attempted assassinations at the baseball field. I doubt it. And, you know, and then they want to defund police. And Bill, I offered an amendment when they were marking up the bill to form this commission. I offered an amendment to include investigating all the goings-on, motivations, the preparedness of our protection involving June 14, 2017 at the baseball field, and they voted it down. So I said, you know, you must not be seriously interested in protecting this Capitol physical structure and those that work within it. And have you seen anything? Has any part of this that they've really put out been anything but political attacks? It really has not been. And so I think America is seeing through it, Bill. I mean, I think they feel like they've seen enough, and they're ready to move on, and they really are interested in more important things like our economy and our border crisis and our supply chain crisis, and how the withdrawal from Afghanistan was managed, and the loss of life, American life there. And now we have the president's mandate, vaccine mandate, in front of the Supreme Court, I believe today.
Look at it this way, Congressman. We have a circumstance now where the one person in charge of the Capitol and the safety of the Capitol is the Speaker of the House. I had on Congressman Jim Jordan about 2 or 3 weeks ago. And of course, normally in the Congress, it is routine for the other party's leadership to pick the members of a committee. Never before has, when Newt Gingrich, I heard him the other night on Fox, Newt Gingrich talked about him picking the members of the Democratic side of a committee. He said it wouldn't happen. So in this case,
right,
Jim Jordan wanted to be on the committee along with Jim Banks of Northern Indiana, and they were barred, and they put 2 rhinos on that aren't Republicans, and that is Cheney is not I'm sorry, Lynn Cheney is not a Republican anymore. And so we have a situation now where the person in charge of the security was told by the president's chief of staff, and the chief of the Capitol Police, we need to call it the National Guard for January 6th, and let's protect the building. And now there's evidence clearly come out that Nancy Pelosi failed to do any of that. And if Jim Jordan was on the committee, I'm sure we would hear all kinds of information about, and Banks, about what did Nancy Pelosi know and when did she know it? Is there any sense in the Congress that Swalwell, you're on the Intelligence Committee with him. Of course, his main claim to fame is sleeping with a red Chinese communist spy, and I don't know what information he gave to her, God only knows. But is there any sense in the Congress that there should have been protection put up by the Speaker because the president and the chief of staff and the chief of Capitol Police, they wanted the Capitol protected, and Nancy Pelosi left it unprotected? Why?
Yeah, this is an amazing thing, how she can turn her failure to protect the Capitol and to take the appropriate actions ahead of time. And even at the time, she's been able, through mainstream media at least, to turn this failure of hers into, some other production against Republicans. And it's interesting through this process that we don't have the records of her conversations surrounding this event beforehand, during, and after, yet they're subpoenaing everybody else's private conversations. And so that you don't have to look any further than that. What does that tell you? What do you have to hide? Why are you blocking that? And they say, well, those don't matter. Well, they get away with that with the mainstream media, just to be able to say, well, it doesn't matter. We don't need those. Yes, you do. Yes, you do, because that's the heart of the issue, is when you're talking about the protection of the Capitol. It's not the heart of the issue about what was done, because what was done was wrong.
Absolutely.
But the heart of the issue is, how do we prevent this from happening again? You had a guy drive up on Good Friday and kill a Capitol policeman just by ramming the barricade. Do we want to talk about that and how we make sure something like that doesn't happen? Do we want to talk about, what if this guy actually had a carload full of, like Timothy McVeigh's actions, right? Just full of explosives and blow everything up. Why are we not discussing how we actually do protect our Capitol? And here we are at the same time, everyday Americans are still not allowed to come into the Capitol to sit in the galleries and watch the House, watch the Senate. It's their house. They're still not allowed in. And they can't even come and visit their representatives except in very rare circumstances.
And Congressman Brent, to put a sharper point on this, there was a tweet sent out by Nancy Pelosi holding a moment of silence for fallen heroes of January 6th, reading the names of Officer Brian Sicknick, Howard Liebengood, Jeffrey Smith, and Billy Evans. Billy Evans. Billy Evans was killed on April the 2nd, 2021 by Nation of Islam Louis. He was a devotee. He was killed by Noah Green. Noah Green rammed his car into Capitol Police officers before he was shot. U.S. Capitol Police Officer William Billy Evans was killed in the line of duty. And he is a Louis Farrakhan, Nation of Islam supporter who wanted to kill Capitol Police. And she put that dead police officer who sacrificed so much, but it happened April the 2nd, and he was killed not by the so-called rioters in the Capitol. He was killed by a follower of Louis Farrakhan, but she put him into the mix, and nobody called her on it. Why?
They don't. They don't call him on anything. You just go back to the the presidential race, and you'd see things like Joe Biden saying ridiculous comments. He said on one interview with Wolf Blitzer, he said, not one person in America had to get COVID. Not one. It's Trump's fault. Just look at the data. And Wolf Blitzer just stood there. He didn't say what data. And he didn't say, you told the president, you said the president shouldn't restrict travel to the United States from China. What are you talking about? Show us the data. They don't get held accountable by anyone from the mainstream media. And I just keep saying this, Bill, if you've ever seen The Truman Show, The Truman Show, this is what people are living on.
Yes, it's like a disconnect to reality. If you're going to investigate what happened on January the 6th, 2021, one of the key elements is, why did Nancy Pelosi not do what she did? That does not take away responsibility whatsoever from the hundreds of individuals who assaulted police officers. They should be held to account, criminal damaging. But before we get on to your article about Fox, the U.S. Attorney's Office and AG has said there's no evidence of a conspiracy. There's no evidence of an insurrection. An insurrection is a term of art used in court filings to demonstrate the violent overthrow of the government. And I think in your Intelligence Committee, the FBI director has been asked repeatedly, is there any evidence of a conspiracy afoot? And the answer up to this point has been no. A year later, we've had multiple investigations by the House, multiple by the Senate. We have hundreds or thousands of investigations underway of the actual wrongdoers who did what they did wrongfully on January the 6th. But the FBI director said there's no evidence of a conspiracy resulting in some insurrection, but CNN mentions insurrection every other day. Now, before I let you go, Congressman Brad Wenstrup, you wrote a great column for Fox News. Can you describe what you said in your column?
Yeah, basically it was, where is the doctor and everything involved with COVID right now? And repeatedly through the article, I said, oh, doctor, where art thou? And, basically, if you just take a look scientifically, I'm a physician, you look at this, what's going on with COVID, we know that vaccinated people get COVID. We knew that from the beginning. They don't get as sick, less likely to be hospitalized. It does have a positive therapeutic effect, at least. But at the same time, we know that viruses produce variants. So every time there's a new variant, everyone thinks that the world's about to fall apart. But this is something that should be expected. And so we should be prepared for it. But the big problem of what we have right now is we've taken the doctor out of the equation. Americans want to be educated, not indoctrinated. And so you put forth a vaccine mandate. You're putting out a government-executed healthcare mandate, and with the threat of losing your job, and at the same time you can come across the border and not have to be vaccinated. But this is with the threat of losing your job, and it's not going to solve the problem. And so what people should be doing is seeing their doctor, the doctor that cares about them, the doctor that can tell them the risk and the benefits, that can talk to them about the low incidence, but the possibility of myocarditis, the things that we're seeing happen, but also the benefits. Talk about the benefits of the vaccine. I'm pro-vaccine, but I'm anti-mandate. This is not how healthcare is supposed to be carried out. Not through Dr. Twitter, not through Dr. Facebook, not through Dr. Mandate, but through an honest conversation with your physician who cares about you. And you have that discussion there and then. And also we need to focus more not on just getting everyone vaccinated, because vaccinated people get COVID. If you want to save lives, we need to be focusing on the therapeutics, making sure monoclonal antibodies are available. Yes. Discuss the other treatments. Discuss how obesity and other comorbidities can affect you and make you more vulnerable. And work on those issues. Make sure that you have proper nutrition and the vitamin supplements that are helpful to your immune system. Have those conversations. The antivirals that are on the way. But those are conversations that you sit and you're looking someone in the eye who can tell you all about it and actually be talking to someone who treats COVID patients. I don't know that Dr. Fauci has been by the bedside of one COVID patient.
Would you're like a doctor, a congressman, a businessman. Would you ever listen to Dr. Anthony Fauci or Dr. Walensky and say, those are the persons upon which I will rely in the most important part of my own affairs to keep me and my family healthy? The answer is, I think no, because let's face it, I have list and list after list of false statements each of them have made. And at this point, it's a good thing Joe Biden can read improperly a teleprompter, because the other day when he gave his speech and Nancy Pelosi, no one could look at those two and say, those individuals are the leaders of my country, and I'm proud of what they did. What after Pearl Harbor and after 9/11, the country came together. It was Roosevelt and Bush 43
Yes.
who brought the country
Yes.
together going in one direction. But when you look at those two individuals casting blame everywhere but on themselves and blaming no one other than Republicans, comparing Republicans to Nazis and Republicans to Islamic terrorists, is not the way things ought to work. But once again, Congressman Brad Wenstrup, I'm glad you're there, but it's Flag Day, June 14th, 2017. Numerous congressmen were targeted by Democratic activists for murder. One was mortally wounded, whose life you helped to save, Congressman of Louisiana, Stephen Scalise. And that is ignored completely because it doesn't fit the media narrative. But Congressman, we got to go. Where can we get your column? It's at Fox News, correct?
Yeah, it's foxnews.com. Look, we'd probably be better served if someone took the microphones away from Biden, Fauci, and Walensky. They contradict themselves. Even Bernie Sanders, communications director, says, I don't understand why it keeps going on TV and speculating. If you have a policy change, announce it. If you don't. This just confuses the hell out of everything. That's what he wrote. Bernie Sanders guy.
Yeah, Bernie Sanders. Yeah. And secondly, the only person killed on January 6th was Ashley Babbitt, and she was killed unarmed. I can imagine if the opposite had happened, and if some Democratic supporter who was unarmed was shot by a police officer, all hell would break loose. But I don't want to forget her name. Once again, Congressman Brad Wenstrup, thank you for coming on the Bill Cunningham Show. Good luck and Godspeed. Thank you.